All right, guys. All right. Another session indeed. Another session indeed. Today was interesting. I broke even today. And the conditions of the market were interesting. That was really interesting because there just wasn't enough movement going on. I did miss a few spots. Well, not a few, maybe about one or two spots. And it was just a pretty interesting day today. I did miss a spot right out of the gate. So that was that, you're going to see that in a minute. I don't think I show that, but I think I'll point it out to you if it's still around and, anywhere in this video. But yeah, today was just really an interesting day. So here we go. Right out the gate, I mean, we already have trick candles going on here, and this looks like it's going to just storm down and just hit that area. But like I always say, I've seen this stuff too many times, been through this stuff too many times to get duped by that particular candle situation. And the whole market as a whole, I think today the conditions were just a trip. I mean, there were a lot of tricky areas, a lot of tricky stuff going on, a lot of trickeration. So I wasn't able to really capture some good spots where I was able to say, yeah, this is definitely a good spot for me to make my money. And I think that might have happened at the end when I did break even, but it was just a trip. Like here, usually in other conditions, if the conditions weren't what it was today, that's a perfect trade to take. Like I would have jumped on that trade. Like that would have been something that would have been ideal for me to take. But you see that low there where that candle was kind of hanging around at. That's the tricky area. Most aggressive traders, aggressive traders who kind of do perform strategies or strategies similar that I'm doing now. They'll probably jump right on that trade. They'll probably jump right on that, and just sit on it, and I can't do that because it's just the conditions are just not really conducive today. And it's just, and you can see here I'm like really thinking about it. I really am thinking about it, but the conditions were just so interesting, today, and I just I was just really apprehensive. So once I finally did get into it, I'm really just testing it at this point. I'm just testing the level because I'm not too confident about what's going on. I'm okay about the loss if I were to keep it and it kind of did whatever, so I was okay with whatever the results were going to be. But yeah, this kind of stuff, it's kind of herking and jerking, kind of doing all this random activity and stuff. And, those things I don't really have much use for. I don't really feel anything for it. So, at a certain point, you just kind of look at it and you're like, okay, well, now it's just a matter of, where do I want to take the money or where do I want to get out at so I don't, completely fall apart in this trade. So I just felt like I needed to just make a decision. And I mean, the biggest thing is, if anything, at the most, I'm just waiting for it to reach that level, to actually touch that level. So if it, which is really having a hard time doing, so if it, and it looks like it's kind of getting ready to touch it. So I'm just waiting for an opportunity to take it, to take profit at that level, so that I could squeeze out a couple of $100 at least. I probably should have taken that 150, that 130, that was showing up. I probably should have taken that, but I was just waiting for something good to happen. But like it to like for it to touch that level, but it just wasn't budging. I mean, it was really just teetering slowly. And when it does that, you might as well just leave it alone, which is what I did here. I'm just waiting for whatever I'm waiting for. And, it eventually is just like, okay, with it doing all this stuff, just get out of it, So I'm looking to get out of it real soon, which is what I was looking at here. It didn't fill, so I had to try again. So I just went on ahead and just got out of it. I basically kind of broke even. I may have made $11 off of it or something, but I wasn't going to take the chance of, just really putting myself in a bad way because of greed. And what happens is on Nadex, when you're trading on here, it's easy to get caught up in the greed thing, because you see it's in the blue, you see it's in profit, you see it doing its thing, and you're like, okay, this thing just has to touch, and now you're just kind of gambling. But you have to have enough sense to realize that, in a situation like this is just not a winning situation. It's just really not. I mean, yesterday, the market was moving pretty smoothly, excuse me. And with it moving smoothly, I mean, it pretty much would have cleared that level, like, with no problem yesterday. But conditions are different, and these are situations you're going to run into every now and then when we're talking about trading. So here I thought about getting back in again, and it did eventually kind of touch that area a little bit, but and it did do eventually what I was looking for. I just got out of it a little bit prematurely, a little bit soon, but I just didn't want to take any chances, unnecessary chances on, a trade like this, because the thing is, yeah, it's touching that level, but again, that greed part of you is going to tell you, hey, if it touched that level, why not touch the bottom? Why not do whatever, right? So that's what's going to end up happening, and what ends up happening is you end up losing the trade altogether, and you end up losing way much more than you should have lost. And I try to prevent that as much as possible. So, so I'm just kind of looking at this level. A lot of trickeration going on, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of activity, a lot of sideways stuff going on. So I'm just taking it easy. I'm not taking a trade, So and then when it's moving sideways like this, and in many cases, when it is kind of making these sort of erratic sideways, stagnant movements, it forces you to be patient even more, especially with the method that I'm trading with. I mean, it's imperative that I am as patient as possible, because I am waiting for certain moves, like the move you just seen me take a moment ago. I'm waiting for moves like that, because those moves are pretty defined, they're pretty distinct, and they're showing like the closest signs of absolution of a move possible. But if it's not moving that well, you're not going to get that drop that I usually get any other day, when I'm trading these things. So you usually don't, have these opportunities, all the time that I'm looking for. So you got to have enough sense to realize that every day is going to be different. Every day is going to be something new that's going to happen to you. And this is why you can't really trust a lot of these guys that are talking and talking crazy about whatever strategies they're using, showing, oh, hey, I turned $300 into $1 million a day. this is the reason why you got to stop listening to these cats, because they're not showing you what I'm showing you right now. They're not showing you every condition that you can confront possible on any given day. Any given day, this thing could go crazy, or any other day, this thing could do exactly what it's doing right now, which is being stale, which is being stagnant. It's moving sideways. You can see that it's sideways, right? You can see just with the little bit that I'm showing you on the screen in terms of, the charting. I think a little bit later, I kind of move the ticket out of the way and I show you like a little bit more of the chart. But right now, I'm just looking at this particular level, looking at reaction. I'm still not confident, because of that wick. You see that green wick that's barely touching that level I'm looking at right now. That's what's hindering a lot of this, right? I mean, it could very well come down, but see, this is what I'm talking about with the trick candle thing. These are trick candles. Like you can't just, this is where people lose accounts and blow accounts, right? Because each candle, they're risking it all. They're risking a certain amount. And I mean, you could blow your account in like 3 or 4 candles easy, because, you're trying to catch this move or trying to catch that move. When in reality, a single wick could keep you from making a good amount of money in a given day. And that's what this one wick that you're looking at that's barely touching this level, that's what this wick is doing. It's refraining other candles from, touching that level. Now, it could still, now I'm not saying this in a form of like, absolute confidence or anything. I mean, it could very well just blow by, but I'm saying that every time I see these sideways movements happen, every time I see these conditions show up, this is what tends to happen. It's moving so slowly that even a single wick touching a certain level can refrain like other candles from touching these levels, because it's just not moving all that well. It's just not moving much at all. And once again, still showing signs of, of just stagnation and trickeration, so again, anybody else, this is another loss, because if anybody else who's watching this, looking at this, they're like, oh yeah, you got to get in that. Really? Yeah. So, this is what I'm saying about certain conditions. When you're looking at these conditions and you see that it's clearly sideways and you see this happening, yes, it's tempting. Yes, I'm looking at it and I'm contemplating, but I'm not contemplating to the point where I'm just going to jump in and I'm just going to lose another $300. I mean, if I would have gotten into those 2 candles, fooling around, being goofy and stuff, I mean, I would have been down quite a bit of money. I would be down quite a bit of money. I would be down at least $300, like at least. So, that, and you don't want to lose money unnecessarily. Like this part of the session, like what I'm showing right now, is an unreasonable area to lose money at. You don't want to lose money in an area like this, especially when it's moving sideways. You do not want to lose money unnecessarily this way. So this is why I haven't taken a trade yet. And I'm filming my break even, because there's a lesson to be learned here. So the lesson that needs to be learned is, first of all, you can see visual cues. Now, remember, when I talk about these visual fundamentals, when I talk about just looking at the chart, you can clearly see that this thing is sideways. Like it's clear as day that it's sideways today. And the contemplation here, even in this particular situation now at this point, it's like, do I want to get in this trade so that I can, take some profit off the top once it reaches, that level? Because now I'm kind of playing the levels. And since I'm a trader who trades out of the money on Nadex, quite often I trade like near or out of a little bit out of the money, because I know what I'm doing in terms of trading out of the money. These kinds of situations, they definitely test your discipline, because again, if I would have gotten into this one, this would have been like more money lost, so these situations, these are the situations that chip at your money. Like it will chip your account down. Like you will look up and you will be down $1,000 trading in this sideways market like this. This is why you got to be careful. Okay, so because this looks like it's just really dying to touch that area, but I know based on what the conditions are today, I know it's not touching that area. I know it's not. So I'm not going to even waste my time or even give this chart the satisfaction of getting into a trade like that. I'm just not going to do it. And this is where the lesson is. This is where you've got to learn how to just display as much patience as you possibly can display. So here I'm definitely thinking about getting in, and I think this is the area where I lost a certain amount of money. I think this was my first loss here. Well, my only loss, but but this particular area, first of all, there was less than 10 minutes left in the binary, and it does look like a flat correction. I mean, it looks like a forming flat correction, meaning that it could potentially not only touch that line but pass that line potentially. So I just went on ahead and got in. Okay, because a lot of times when you are in caught up in this kind of a market where you get caught watching, you tend to kind of miss opportunities like this if they kind of show themselves a certain way. So this area would be a pretty good area to get into for just to see if it will touch that area, which is why I got into it, right? Which is why I got into it. And you may be asking like, well, Wesley, you just said that, that in this sideways market, things are funny style, there's trickeration, and that's pretty interesting. That's a pretty interesting area to get into, Wesley, because that's support, right? And yeah, it looks like support, it looks, and it is a very significant part of support. But the fact is, I got into this because I'm ready to take profit around that area. So if it were to come down, and I got in at $21 per contract. So I got in at $21 per contract. If so the price was 79. If it were to go down to say 64 or like 60, that's a good area to take profit from. That's a good binary area to take profit from. So that's the area where I will be looking to take profit. And this is the thing that I keep stressing when I talk about having a plan, having a strategy, and all that, because the fact of the matter is, in any trade you take, you need to have several reasons why you're taking that trade. It can't be because you haven't taken a trade in a while. That's not a good reason. It can't be because you just need a piece of the action. That's not a good reason. That's definitely not a good reason, actually. And you need to have a very analytical, a very distinct reason why you are taking a particular trade. Even if you lose it, you need to have a distinct reason, and you need to have a plan, and you need to have certain levels of acceptance. You need to accept the loss. So when I got, or the risk, the amount you're risking. So when I got into this trade, I was already prepared to lose the fullest extent of the amount because of the fact that I know that this thing is moving so erratically, moving so slowly, that at any point in time, especially when it gets close to binary levels like this, especially when it's this close, this thing could come down, just come crashing down. All kinds of stuff could just happen. So I'm just prepared for whatever. And plus, this area just looks so tempting. It's like, well, if it touches down that area, if it even touches it, I'm taking profit. If it gets even close to it, I'm taking profit. And I'm at a high enough level to take profits at a reasonable area. So I'm not getting in at $60 per contract. I'm not getting in at 70. This is a really good area to get into anyway if you were going to test it. So I'm already prepared to hold this thing all the way to the end of expiration. And there's a little bit over 6 minutes left anyway until expiration ends here. So I'm willing to keep this thing on for the whole expiration. So right now I'm down $300, and I think that's like the max. Well, I think the max is like 315 or something like that. That's my max loss. So I'm okay with that. So that's why I'm looking comfortable. That's why I'm like, okay, well, it's down. If it loses and I just lose the whole thing, the whole trade, I'm only out $300. I have $8,000 in the account, so $300 isn't going to kill anybody, especially for a test. Now, you don't want to do this multiple times, right? If I did now, what you're looking at right now is what has been going on moments before this. So if you look slightly to the left, these areas are the areas that you could have easily tested too. But this is just, that would be doing too much if you tested those areas and then try to test this and and be down $900 because you wanted to test that area, that. So you don't want to do it every time. But I just felt like at this moment in time, especially how it's forming right now, the way that it's forming, this definitely appears to be a flat correction, all the way down to the downside, to the lowest area. So with this structure looking the way that it is, this flat correction, because I believe it is anyway. I think I take advantage of the move later, the move that I was expecting it to do here. I think it does it later. So this is why you just choose your spots and your test levels. If you're going to test a level, you need to be okay with a certain level of loss, and I'm okay with losing $300 to see what's going to happen here. And by now, I'm just holding this thing and just for kicks, because I'm already know that I'm out the $300. If that candle formed and that candle showed up, I'm pretty much out. I know it tried to make a little bit of a move back down slightly, but there's not enough steam in the market anyway for this thing to just do whatever. So it's not going to clear that candle. I think it covers like maybe a third of it, or like almost half of the candle. But yeah, this thing is, this trade is pretty much a wrap. Yeah. So, if you don't know by now, the flat correction is pretty much the correction that I love to trade on. And because I trade 20-minute binaries and I'm on a 5-minute chart, there's always plenty of opportunity for a lot of these structures to show up. So this structure is one of my favorite structures, the flat correction, which is what you're looking at now. And the flat correction comes in many different forms. There are many levels that it shows up in. Other traders call it a M pattern, a W pattern, or whatever the case is, but it's a flat correction in Elliott wave language. So so I'm just looking for this thing to come down on the downside, because it is on the downside, most definitely. But, the way that the market is moving right now, it's very difficult to tell how it's going to show itself. And me taking this particular test level, I was just prepared to lose this money. I was prepared to just test this thing, at the highest extent. So, that's just what happened there. But it is based on the structure. It's based on my rules when I'm trading these things, So when I'm trading flat corrections in particular, I'm just waiting to see how much momentum is going to show up on whichever side it's showing. So in this instance, it's showing a flat correction on the downside. So I'm just waiting for this thing to just come crashing down at any point in time, at any moment now. And that could be the next candle, that could be the next 10 candles, I don't know. But something's going to happen, and something did happen, which is how I got my money back. So, I think after this, I believe after this trade, I get into the next trade and get the money back. But yeah, I'm always paying attention to the flat correction. The flat correction is one of the most simpler Elliott wave patterns that you can locate. I mean, I mean, once that thing forms, it's like it's pretty clear as day after a while. Once you see that thing show up, and I mean, the bulk of my money, I mean, a good 90% of my money is based on the flat correction. And the impulse waves are, they're not that often. The impulse waves, the 5-wave pattern like that, it's not really that common because it takes a pretty like intense move for those things to show up. And it takes some pretty interesting volatility for those things to show up. But more often than not, you get a lot of correction patterns, and the flat correction is definitely one of the most common corrections in Elliott waves. Like, as far as identifying these things. So yeah. Anyway, I lost that. I lost $300, so I'm down to $8,000, $8,100. So I'm just waiting for the next opportunity, which I'm going to sort of sit on for a minute and wait for. So I wait a little bit later. I may have waited maybe an extra 30 minutes or something. I don't know. But so I finally get in there. Now, this is the activity I've been waiting on. This is the activity I've been waiting for. And this is probably the level I should have waited for initially. I should have just been a little bit more patient, and just waited for this instead of having a break-even day. I would have had like a $300 day or, whatever the case is. But yeah, this was a good trade. So you see the flat correction forming, just as I mentioned. What I'm waiting for it to do is touch that level. I just need for it to touch that level. I just need for it to come down and, just be around that area so I could take profit, especially with the way that things are moving right now, the erratic movement, the stale movement. I just, I don't want to take any chances by sticking around just to lose money because I'm trying to be greedy. So that's what you need to learn about this stuff, people. You can't allow greed to set in just because you see a noticeable pattern or see a noticeable process happening. It doesn't mean that you have to be greedy and try to take everything just to prove a point. A lot of people, they get into any of these binaries and they're like, yeah, if you can't hold to expiration, you're not a good trader, you're scared, and all this other kind of stuff. And it just depends on your strategy, but I mean, if your strategy enables you to hold to expiration, so be it. But my strategy doesn't necessarily require me to hold until, expiration. My strategy involves what I'm doing exactly right now with what you're looking at. This is textbook. This is a textbook move that you're looking at right now that I take advantage of, that I take profit from. So as you can see, I took profit and I broke even. I went back to my $400 range. So, I made the $300 back and I broke even. And the flat correction is trying to complete or form itself more. And I got out of it because I just didn't want to take any chances. I didn't want to get caught watching, didn't want to get caught trying to, pray for it to get back to profit levels. I just took what I needed and I was done with it. And plus, it's like 12:45. The market's almost over. Well, 3:45 Eastern time. So the market's almost done. It's almost over. And, I just wanted to end the day on a good note. So yeah, that's it, guys. So thanks for watching this. Geek Hybrid is signing out. You guys have a good day.